Welcome to this briefing on the Office for Environmental Protection, the OEP's assessment of government's progress in improving the natural environment for the period 1st of April 2022 to the end of March 2023. I am Professor Robbie McDonald, Chief Scientist at the OEP, and I will introduce this year's report and will shortly hand over to Dr. Cathy Maguire, our Head of Assessments, who will talk you through our approach and key findings. First of all, a little background. The Office for Environmental Protection was set up in November 2021 under the Environment Act 2021. We are an oversight body set up to protect and improve the natural environment by holding government and other public authorities to account. Our work covers England and Northern Ireland, though today our report refers to England only. When we were set up as part of the 2021 Environment Act, Parliament put in place 4 cornerstones for environmental governance. Most important in today's context is the Environmental Improvement Plan, or EIP, which must set out how government intends to improve the natural environment. Second are statutory targets to which government is now legally committed and which set the specific states and timelines for improvements to be made. Third is a new environmental principles policy statement to which all public authorities must have regard when making their decisions. And finally, the 4th cornerstone is us, the OEP, established to make sure that this new system works, that the environment is improved as Parliament and government intends, and in line with legal obligations. One of our most important jobs, one of our statutory roles at the OEP, is to report on whether the EIP, the Environmental Improvement Plan, is working, and to judge progress towards meeting legal targets. The first EIP was the 25-year Environment Plan, which was established in 2018 and adopted in law as the EIP in 2021. This plan was revised in January 23, just before the end of our current reporting period. Therefore, our report today covers this transition between the 25-year plan and the new EIP 23. The statutory targets to which government has now committed were also established at the end of January 23, so it is an early point to assess progress towards meeting these. Nevertheless, by looking at environmental trends, policy and practice so far, and the ambition of the targets in the years ahead, it is already possible to take a prospective view on the likelihood of meeting these targets, the soonest of which must be met in only a few years' time. I want first of all to give you a picture of our overall findings. Let's start with the ambition as it is framed in the EIP. Government's ambition is no less than to be the first generation to have left the environment in a better state than that in which it was found. The Prime Minister, in his introduction to the EIP 23, recognises that protecting the environment is fundamental to people's health and prosperity, and makes clear that the scale of the challenge means changing the trajectory that the country has been on ever since the Industrial Revolution. This is a bold vision of how government can work to make the environment better for the nation, and our report is to assess how this vision is being made real. Viewed against government's long-term vision, our summary assessment is that while some progress has been made, very substantial challenges remain, and that government is largely off track to meet EIP 23 ambitions, Environment Act targets and other commitments. It is important to note that many environmental trends are now moving in the right direction, and gains have been made in air quality in many parts of the country. Similarly, the designation of additional marine protected areas is a vital step, though each area now needs practical protection from the diverse pressures affecting them. Our key challenge, however, beyond some things starting to move in the right direction, is to ask whether enough is being done now to ensure targets will be met in the years ahead. Our view is that progress is not currently sufficient to be confident about the prospects of meeting those commitments, and that the ambition and vision of an improved environment for the next generation is at risk. Many of the right policies have been introduced, and many are in the early stages of implementation. Our view is that delivery of these policies must be scaled up and sped up to ensure that commitments are met. We particularly highlight the importance of nature-friendly farming to contribute towards biodiversity conservation, improvements to water quality and air quality, and indeed almost all aspects of environmental improvement on land and in our inland waters. With around 2/3 of our land being in agricultural management, farmers and landowners are absolutely central to effective management of England's natural environment. This is a huge area of government activity that must be rolled out effectively and at pace, and with confidence that it will deliver the many and diverse ambitions for how farmed land will be managed. Critically, the EIP 23 states that it is a detailed delivery plan. We disagree. We do not consider that the EIP 23 is a detailed delivery plan. We would like to see a plan that shows clearly and shows transparently how each of the legal commitments will be delivered, who will do what, how much and by when. How each of the actions government has outlined will come together and in sum will deliver the targets in full. In short, it needs to be clear how government's plans stack up. While our findings this year are that government is largely off track to meet EIP 23 ambitions, Environment Act targets and other commitments, these prospects are not fixed. There are many clear opportunities to change trends, make progress towards targets and deliver significant environmental improvements. With its ambition and vision firmly established, the EIP 23 must now be bolstered with well-planned delivery if it is to enable the Environment Act targets to be met and to significantly improve the natural environment as Parliament intended. I'll now hand over to Dr. Cathy Maguire, our Head of Assessments, to run through our assessment and findings in more detail.
So turning to our assessment, our progress report is an integrated assessment of England's environment. We assess government's progress against the targets and commitments they've set themselves and consider the actions that they describe in their annual progress report. This year's report is more comprehensive than our last. With the EIP 2023, it provides a baseline to assess where government is making progress and it analyses opportunities to respond to the environmental challenges facing England in line with government's ambitions and vision. Our assessment provides a picture of the situation during the reporting period, but that is within a changing political and policy context. When we do our assessment, we look back with a specific focus on the reporting year, April 2022 to March 23, and we look ahead at what this means for prospects, so we can make recommendations on how government could improve progress. We are committed to transparency and accessibility. This year our assessment is not just one report, we've also published a methodological statement. This sets out what we did and how we did it, the data we used, our analytical methods and the stakeholder engagement we've undertaken. Looking at the overall picture, is England's natural environment improving? We've used summary assessments to present our analysis in a concise and accessible way. We present an overall picture of past trends, progress and overall prospects of meeting ambitions, Environment Act targets and other commitments across the 10 goal areas of the EIP. Our summary assessment is that while some progress has been made, very substantial challenges remain, and government is largely off track to meet its ambitions, Environment Act targets and other commitments. Looking at environmental trends in more detail, we've used a range of environmental indicators to look at key trends across the EIP goal areas. These are a broad set of indicators, but they do not capture all the aspects of each goal, so they provide a partial but informative picture and one that looks across a wide range of topics. In addition, there are key data gaps and issues with timeliness of data, which we highlight in our report. But overall, our assessment of 51 recent short-term trends show that 25 are improving, 10 are static, 8 are deteriorating, and 8 we could not assess due to data availability. We see improving trends across all goal areas, but there's most success in reductions of environmental pressures such as specific air pollutants, chemicals and greenhouse gases. We see deteriorating trends across 6 goal areas. For example, in clean and plentiful water, the number of water pollution incidents and per capita drinking water consumption are both increasing. In waste and resources, the amount of residual waste generation and hazardous waste disposal is also increasing. And some of the direct drivers of biodiversity loss, like invasive non-native species, are increasing in their establishments and distribution. But most goal areas show a mixed picture. One goal area which shows a mixed picture is thriving plants and wildlife. This is the apex goal in the EIP, the one to which all others should contribute. The mixed picture shows trends such as species abundance showing little change in the short term, although this is set against a backdrop of long-term decline. Also, we were not able to assess some trends in the marine environment due to data availability, and this is an important gap that needs to be addressed. We assess progress towards 40 Environment Act targets, EIP targets and commitments. Our assessment of progress shows that 4 are largely on track, 11 partially on track, 10 are largely off track, and 15 we could not assess. We could not assess these because of different reasons which we set out in detail in our report. We didn't assess some of the long-term targets set for 2042 at this stage, and while this can seem like the distant future, the interim targets are only a few years away, and other important commitments such as those under the Water Framework Directive even sooner. So to achieve these and long-term goals, further action is needed. In assessing progress, we looked at whether policies and actions are comprehensive, that is, they cover the most important issues, convincing, that their development and delivery are high quality, and capable, that they are producing the intended impacts. In 7 goal areas, we considered progress to be mixed, and in 3 goal areas, we considered that progress has been limited. This includes chemicals and pesticides, sustainable use of natural resources, and climate change mitigation and adaptation. Informed by past trends and our assessment of progress, we also assessed the prospects of meeting Environment Act targets, EIP ambitions and commitments. 7 goal areas are largely off track, 2 are partially on track. We couldn't assess the goal area of enhancing beauty, heritage and engagement with the natural environment because the evidence base needed to assess progress towards this main commitment of ensuring that everyone lives within a 15-minute walk of a green or blue space is still in development. So what is holding back progress? Looking across EIP goal areas, I want to highlight 4 factors. First, key policies, strategies and regulatory frameworks are announced and anticipated, but then not developed or delivered. Of particular importance is the UK Chemical Strategy and Land Use Framework. Actions do not address all major pressures. If we look at water, while there is very welcome action on combined sewer overflows, but not the same urgency given to addressing diffuse pollution. Resources are not given as needed, even when tools and actions are well understood. There's a comprehensive approach in place for tackling invasive non-native species, but it's not being implemented at the scale required to achieve the desired outcomes. Finally, positive actions are not being implemented with enough urgency. For example, the current rate of tree planting we need to double to meet the England Tree Action Plan goal. How can progress be improved? This would take a shift in emphasis from visions and goals to policies, actions, and a focus on delivery. Are government's plans sufficient to meet the EIP targets? We can't always tell. Many policies and proposals are unquantified, making it hard to see how actions will contribute individually and come together to achieving the goals. In essence, do the government's plans stack up? Government can change this by taking action and providing a detailed and transparent delivery plan. This will also need coherence and consistency. Environmental challenges such as climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution and impacts on health are all linked. Fail to address one effectively, we fail to address them all effectively. We need to look at the shared underlying drivers. Achieving the vision will require stronger commitment to the EIP. The main elements are the right ones. They need more focus on delivering them. This will take clear and decisive leadership, and that will enable others to fully play their parts to achieving improved environmental outcomes. But I want to come back to nature-friendly farming again. It is one of the cross-cutting themes in the EIP and it's of particular importance. It's foreseen to contribute directly to the goals of thriving plants and wildlife, clean air, clean and plentiful water, mitigating and adapting to climate change, and using resources from nature sustainably. We've carried out some initial analysis that we intend to develop further, as the precise contribution of nature-friendly farming is not clearly quantified across EIP goals, yet there is a heavy reliance on it to contribute to achieving targets. It's still early days, but there's significant uncertainty in the effectiveness and pace of the scheme rollout, and provision of advice for farmers and landowners will be vital for its uptake. And now I'm going to hand back to my colleague Robbie, who's going to take us through our recommendations.
Thank you, Cathy. Let's move then to our recommendations. Within the detail of our report, we provide a comprehensive set of 47 recommendations specific to each of the 10 goal areas and cross-cutting themes of the EIP. I'm not going to go through that level of detail here, but a number of consistent and persistent themes emerge. A year on since our last report, our 5 key recommendations remain entirely pertinent and are now yet more pressing. And so perhaps unconventionally, we do not make new recommendations. Rather, we reaffirm and update these 5 key recommendations and urge government to take heed and to follow through on these in earnest. Key recommendation 1 is to implement the Environmental Improvement Plan for 2023 effectively. Government should drive bold, prompt action where it is most needed, particularly in relation to the Environment Act targets to first halt and then reverse the decline in species abundance. It should use all relevant tools at its disposal, provide adequate resources and work at pace and scale. It should attend particularly to rapid and effective implementation of major initiatives, primarily nature-friendly farming, where late, slow or partial delivery will lead to overall failure. Key recommendation 2 is to develop and implement clear and effective governance. Delivery of the EIP 23 will require leadership from government at the highest level. Government should make clear and make public who is accountable, how decisions are made, and how delivery of the EIP 23 will be assured across all levels of government and wider society. Ultimately, greater leadership by central government is required to catalyse and cohere action towards achieving EIP 23 ambitions. Key recommendation 3 is to develop and implement delivery plans. Since our view is that the required delivery detail is absent from the EIP 23 itself, government should develop and publish a detailed delivery plan for the EIP 23 and for each of its goal areas. It should do this swiftly and in any event by the time it publishes its next annual progress report in mid-2024. These plans should show how government will meet legally binding Environment Act targets. Plans need to identify specific policies and activities and make explicit their contribution individually and together towards achieving the specified outcomes. It should be clear how much progress is expected to be made and by when. Government's plans must be shown to stack up. Key recommendation 4 is to set and vigorously pursue clear and achievable interim targets. Interim targets are important for driving early action, avoiding complacency and ensuring cost-effective delivery, but they should all relate clearly to the longer-term targets and should be important milestones to meeting them. Key recommendation 5 is to develop and implement an effective monitoring, evaluation and learning framework. Lessons learned from monitoring and evaluation need to be reported transparently and inform adaptive management of delivery of the EIP 23. Such a framework is also needed for informative annual progress reporting. Government now has an opportunity to improve its annual progress report from 2024 onwards and to move towards providing robust assessments of progress relative to stated expectations rather than simply reporting actions. In conclusion, to succeed, government must speed up and scale up, and together its plans must stack up in order to meet the ambitions it has set for itself. Finally, a little look forwards. We already have our sights on assessment for the current year 2023 to 2024. Our next annual report on progress will continue with our current in-depth focus on improving nature on land and at sea, and will further develop our analysis of the EIP cross-cutting themes of nature-friendly farming, green finance and green choices. It remains to me to thank all of those who have helped with our evidence and analysis this year and who have helped review our report, and to thank colleagues at Natural England, the Environment Agency, the Climate Change Committee, Environmental Standards Scotland and in DEFRA. Thank you.